All right. Heavy subject today, but so relevant. And like, what a better time to talk about it than now, than the holidays. But grief, losing our loved ones. And what we were just talking about, Nicole, like, and learning that you just lost your grandmother the day after Christmas, on her birthday, on the day after Christmas, completely shocked. But she got COVID. She suddenly had a massive stroke, like no issues before that. Like, how do you handle that, especially around the holidays?
Yeah.
I resonate with that so much because I lost my father to a sudden heart attack, which again, just shocking. And it really had me wondering, like, wow, what way is worse? To be completely blindsided and shocked, and where all of a sudden they're gone and there's nothing, like there's no goodbye, there, no last words, there's nothing you can do, they're already gone.
Yeah.
Or, watching someone like go through years of cancer and like or whatever else, being really sick for a long time, and like knowing that it's coming, when people get the diagnosis, oh, you've got so many months to live, or like you're, with your grandma, like, oh, now suddenly it's ours.
Yeah.
But I still can't answer that question in my mind. What is worse?
Yeah.
They're both terrible.
Well, and in this case, I know my grandma wouldn't have wanted to live in a way that she couldn't get up and move around. So, she just had her knee replaced. So she wasn't planning on dying anytime soon, but nobody ever really does plan to die. Well, I mean, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and I don't know. I feel like there's beauty in there's beauty in everybody's passing. And if you really, I don't know, I guess observing myself through this whole process has been fascinating for me because of all the thought work that I have done in the past couple of years, and just observing myself in this deep grief right now, because I have never had grief like this where I have been so aware of it. And in the past, I resisted it. And I see family members also right now resisting the grief and like, oh, I shouldn't be feeling this, whatever. And I had someone like, oh, I wish I could just take all the pain away. Like, I don't want to take the pain away. I want to feel shitty when my grandma passes, right? But I also don't want to, it's like clean guilt almost, where it's like, yeah, this is the healing part of guilt. There's love in this guilt. There is a lot of beauty in guilt, not guilt, grief. That's the word. But
they do often they go hand in hand.
Right. But like, I haven't felt much grief, or now I'm going to mess up the word the whole time, but I haven't felt much guilt personally. Obviously for me, there's little flits of like, oh, I should have, could have, would have, had I known. But like, with the thought work that I have done, for me, it's not helpful for me to have that guilt in the grief. It just adds like layers on layers on layers of garbage on what is already a terrible thing to experience, right? But like, yeah, I don't know. It's hard to explain if you haven't done the work. Like,
or haven't experienced grief,
right.
Like you don't know. There's no preparing. If you've never experienced loss and any level of grief before, there is no preparing for it. And being one who's lost multiple people very close to me in my life in very bizarre different ways, you don't grieve the same with everyone either. There's no said process of, okay, this person, like this just happened. Okay, I need to do these things and go through it. But I want to back up a little bit because I love what you said about there being beauty in the grief, and that you don't want to just get over it and carry on. Like you want to feel it now. Yep. And I applaud you so much on that, because I wish when my dad died, I mean, that was 7.5 years ago now. And that was after I had already gone through some major losses before that. And I found myself, like, as soon as I found out, I felt like this wall go back up of like, oh no, it's happening again. And I did not want to feel it. I went into like survival mode, trying to be there for my family, because my mom was in so much shock. She didn't even know where I lived. And I just felt like I had to serve and be there. And being, a spiritual person too, I knew that I was going to connect with my dad in a spiritual way. And I felt him come through so quickly that I kept telling myself like, oh, well, you're connected with him in a new way now. Like, so don't don't feel bad. There's nothing to cry about or to grieve over. Be thankful for what you have. Be thankful for, this new connection, and carry on. But no, it's amazing. We were just talking about this, on a few recordings ago, of where it still comes up and creeps up on me. And I'm still finding all this old grief I tucked in, because right after it happened, I didn't let myself feel all this shit, to just sit in it and let yourself feel it. Because what makes us think that we need to show no emotion and never cry, that it's weak to cry and hurt and miss someone? Not at all. I think it takes a lot more strength to be vulnerable and let yourself feel all these emotions and let it out.
Right.
So I applaud you.
And at the same time, not everybody grieves the same way. And like, especially with varying conditions between, death and all this stuff, like, there are a lot of times when you have that long drawn out dying process that people grieve in advance. Or like, if you don't have the type of relationship you want with someone, you've already grieved the loss of that figure in your life, even though they're not dead. Like, so them passing might be more like a relief, or, like those sorts of things. But it's a completely different thing. I mean, your dog could die, and that could be the biggest piece of grief that you ever experienced in your life, but like, that doesn't make it less valid, right? Even if it doesn't seem like it's a good reason to the rest of society, doesn't mean that you're not going to experience just an immense amount of grief, or not, right? And either way is okay, but not hiding from what your true feelings are, because then there can be grief, or then there can be like guilt of like not feeling grief.
For sure. And that's an excellent point. I'm glad you brought that up, and like just how grief looks different for everybody. And that point, like, maybe you don't feel upset at all. And like, again, like feeling guilty for that. That's why like guilt and grief do intertwine so much. Dance. And they do get in quite the tango, right? And just know, like, no matter what you're feeling, all it's about is letting yourself feel exactly that. I think in this society, it's, for whatever reason, it's like we've been conditioned to like, okay, grieving, people die every day. This is nothing new to mankind.
Like, oh, okay, right? You have 6 months and then you're over it, or else.
You got to stay strong and smile to everybody, especially early on when you're going through the motions of funeral planning and all of that. And you're seeing all these people, and they're coming, all the cards and, the gatherings and whatnot. It can be so hard to, put that smile on your face and, pretend like it's all okay. And we don't have to pretend that way. No. Like, let yourself cry. If you don't want to cry, don't feel bad about not crying. Whatever feeling is coming up for you, no matter who or what, person, your animal, or what have you that passed, and whatever your relationship was like, whatever you are feeling from that is absolutely valid, exactly as it is. Otherwise, you wouldn't be feeling it. Right. But in this society, it's like we deny our feelings, right? Like we feel stuff come up and we're like, oh no, I shouldn't feel that, so I'm going to step it back down. But really being present in the moment and just letting yourself feel things as they are, as is, like, that's the only way to live. If they're coming up for a reason. And the sooner you let yourself feel them, face them, and just be with them, give yourself some compassion. You might find it's so much easier to pass through them, than to try to stuff them down and avoid them altogether.
And that's a really good point, because I feel like a lot of people resist the grief or negative emotions in general, because they feel like they'll never get out of it. If they, like, instead of like allowing themselves to dip their toe in and then dive in, they think, I'm going to drown in this grief. Right.
Oh, for sure. I absolutely thought that too. I avoided it like the plague. I thought I did. I was only 17, almost 18 the first time I had a major loss that I was involved in a car accident. And it was so just earth shattering that I literally felt like I was drowning in it. So if anyone listening that feels that way now, maybe you lost someone a long time ago, and just, the holiday time, isn't it the birthdays, Christmas, the major holidays that can really almost haunt you with their memory, and, that the obviousness of their absence. But just letting yourself, again, just be in the moment and feel what's ever coming up, because I was always surprised that every time I finally let myself face it And like, gosh, the last time I did, I was just laying in bed with my head in the pillow, just sobbing.
Yeah.
And it lasted like a minute or two.
Yeah.
But once I let it out, I was like, oh, wow, geez, it felt like I was carrying like a 50-pound weight on my shoulders this whole time. And I just dropped it by letting myself cry for 2 minutes.
Yeah.
I feel like once you truly surrender to the emotion, it passes through so much faster than we believe it will.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to get at, I think, of the like, you resist it, but then like, that's what keeps it there longer. It's not actually surrendering, like the surrendering to it process is what gets
Sets
you
it
through
free.
it so much faster, instead of resisting it and like feeling it a little bit. And then like that can go on for years, decades, if you let it. But like that resistance is what's causing suffering. Like we don't need to add suffering onto the grief that we're feeling, right?
That's what we
suffering
do.
is the optional part.
But we do it to ourselves,
right?
Which may be a lot harder to recognize and admit. But I love that you said that, because you know the saying is true: what we resist persists. And it's absolutely true in this case. I agree with you so much that the more it's like it builds it, the more we resist feeling our feelings, it like creates this monster, you know, that just keeps growing bigger and bigger over time, this monster of resistance. So
I equate that to mold in the basement. Like if you're not looking, like if you know it's there, but you're just going to shut the door and pretend it's not, it's going to keep growing bigger, right? You have to go in there and face it head on and get rid of it.
It's so true. I really love that analogy. I've never heard that before, but that's exactly it. It's exactly what we do. We close the door, we keep ourselves busy, right? In the society where we, you know, prove ourselves and feel worthy.
And then it slowly leaches up into the rest of your life, the rest of your house. It takes it over.
It will, and it will take it over. We can be in denial of it as long as we want. Trust me. I mean, I do what I do now because I experienced it. Yes, I'm like, I know firsthand. This is so true. And I only found freedom by finally like surrendering to that moment, surrendering to that feeling. So anybody that's missing your loved ones, maybe like Nicole, you just lost someone on the holiday. The day after was her birthday, you know, but what a beautiful thing. You know, how can we, I mean, not only let yourself feel the grief, let yourself feel the anger, the sadness, let that pour through, let that come out. Because trust me, once you let it flow through, it's, you know, and especially crying too. Crying is so cleansing. So no wonder we're so like tense and stressed in a society that says, don't cry, that's weak. Oh my gosh. Once you let that out, you'll find, I mean, haven't you had a good cry where you were just like, oh, wow, I feel like I ran a marathon after that, but that felt great. Like what?
Let's talk about that for a second. Like the physical toll emotions take on your body.
Absolutely.
Like I mean, obviously, as we started to expect the death to happen, although it was very quick, where, you know, it was, oh, she's going to be fine, to like, this is not okay, she's never coming back. Like that process happened very quickly, but like, where was I going with this?
The physical toll.
Oh, but yeah. So I obviously spent like a good portion of the day in very deep grief, but allowing yourself to rest during that time is so important, because like, especially like looking at the different energy that our body has, but allowing yourself a lot of extra, more than you think, time to rest and relax and like just recover from everything. If you're doing it right, it's probably I mean, there's not a wrong way to feel emotions as long as you are feeling them. But yeah, just give yourself extra space, and don't, if you can avoid it, don't burn your candle at both ends during that time, right?
Exactly. Again, it's important. I mean, I think it's a key part to rest in order to actually feel your emotions. You can't be multitasking. You can be like, okay, I'm going to grieve, I'm going to cry, but I'm also going to check off these other things on my to-do list at the same time.
Well, I guess I wasn't thinking like the same time, but like as I'm actively crying, and then after, when I feel that relief, that's when I need rest. That's when I need to take care of myself instead of, okay, now it's time to do laundry. Like, and there's nothing wrong with that, but like also my body is physically exhausted from the mental processing that's happening. It's using my energy up in this way right now. And I only have a certain amount of energy, and I need to rest and relax and like rejuvenate myself in order to show up how I want to for my family and for myself and for, all these things. Like I can't show up as who I want to be if I'm not taking care of myself through the grief.
Absolutely. Right. Like, and yeah, like you were saying, and that's kind of more what I meant too, where with like,
Yeah.
okay, the crime, and then, okay, back to the to-do list and just keep running through the motions. Like that's still adding, to that kind of monster of resistance, right? You're still trying to run away from it by distracting ourselves, which distractions can be a healthy way to, especially if like you have to be at work, or, you have to be in a place where it's not necessarily appropriate to just, break down and cry and, completely grieve and,
Right.
feel all the feels in that moment. We get it, right? That it's not always, the best time or place to do it. But I mean, if it's happening, you got to just let it happen too.
Yeah.
People will be, I mean, we're all human, right? People will understand. You won't be the first, you won't be the last,
Yeah.
Certainly me. Oh my gosh, I cried at work so many times right after, or gosh, even for a while after my father passed, because you'll get it too, when you go back into the real world and, people, if you left work or what have you on funeral leave and things like that, and you come back and people, oh, how are you doing? How are you doing? And you want to say, oh, okay, I'm okay. It's all good.
Yeah.
Oh, that used to kill me.
Yeah.
That question would drive me nuts. And so in those moments, like I would break down in front of coworkers.
Yeah.
So what? It happens. At least I let it out.
Yeah.
But, not denying ourselves of that. Well, I get it if you're in work, like maybe you're in the middle of a really big meeting and you really can't just start crying right now, but maybe making note of it and allow yourself time to feel it later.
Yeah, to intentionally go back and revisit it.
Yeah, to go to bed a little earlier that night. Give yourself that rest, because that is so important. Like Nicole said, I think we underestimate the mental exhaustion of just the processing the shock. I mean, your body going into shock like that is extremely taxing on your body, even if you're not physically doing anything. So that's another reminder too, like you need the rest, because your body is working that much harder than it normally would under, normal circumstances, because it's under so much stress and shock, trying to process and figure out, in survival mode. Okay, what do we do? How do we handle this? You got to rest, so that, giving yourself that quiet time of stillness, to allow your body, your mind, your spirit to all kind of regroup themselves, right? And that's where more answers and clarity will come. In these stressful situations, it's quick, it's easy to think like I must keep going through it and figure all this out and keep moving and help everybody else and hold it all together. But if you're not giving yourself that space to rest, to feel, to heal, then what good are your actions? What kind of state of mind are these, is the problem solving coming from? Is it coming out under stress and resistance, or are you giving yourself time to rest and to heal and to let, your intuition, to let that come through and speak and guide you in a more peaceful way? That reminds me too, taking care of yourself. Isn't it interesting? My father dying of a heart attack was a huge wake-up call to the level of stress he was carrying in his life that no one knew about. That was ultimately the wake-up call I needed, that led me on this path to walk away from corporate engineering and into, wellness coaching and teaching yoga. And all of a sudden I was like, oh my gosh, am I going to stress myself out running ragged until I could have a heart attack? Or am I going to slow down and take care of myself now and help other people learn how to do that?
Yeah. There was a podcast that I was listening to. I'm trying to remember exactly what she said. But it was like, if you're not living in alignment with yourself and your design, well, it was a human design podcast, but like, if you're not living in alignment with yourself, in whatever way that means to you, the universe will tell you by taking away your money, taking away your health, taking away people in your life, those sorts of things, until you start paying attention. And that was just like this, oh crap. Like it was this moment as I'm driving along and I'm just like, wow, that is so true, because if you're not living in alignment with yourself, it's going to affect your health. period.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
There's no going around
In
it.
so
And
many ways.
it's easy to deny it and want to blame it on, oh, it was this, that, or the other thing. But ultimately, how you take care of yourself, is, and how you feel about yourself also has a lot to do with how your immune system is functioning, how everything in your body is functioning. It cannot operate under stress, cannot operate, in its optimal performance when it's under stress.
Under continuous stress.
And it's so ironic, that we're even talking, like the stress of grief. We just watched our loved ones die. Yet, I mean, wouldn't you think? I mean, it took, I had to lose so many people, and including like my father, like the closest person, to go for me to finally realize, like, oh my God, I need to take care of myself.
Yeah.
So really the best thing we can do, when we lose someone else and, we want to be there for our family, for our loved ones that are also grieving, the best thing we can do to be there for anyone is by putting yourself first, taking care of you first. Just like on that airplane, they tell you for a reason, you put your own mask on first before you help somebody else.
Yeah.
Why can we not bring that concept into the rest of our life?
Yeah.
It's really, in the life or death situation, literally, that like you have to put yourself first. Your cup has to be full. We're pouring from empty cups here.
Yeah.
And you'd be surprised how much you can refill your cup just by feeling your emotions, which might seem backwards, thinking like, oh my gosh, if I feel this and I cry my eyes out, isn't that like, that's literally like emptying my cup?
Yeah.
But no, it's actually refilling it.
Yeah.
You're creating space.
Yeah, because instead of resisting the emotion and storing it away in your body to come up as dis-ease in your body. Yeah.
Exactly.
Let
That's
it go.
exactly it. I had, I found it in my own body too, in so many crazy ways of how much stress was affecting. For a while, I was coming down. I was in the ER for all kinds of random things that seemed to pop up out of nowhere, like bronchitis and kidney stones and all kinds of crazy things. And it didn't stop until I slowed down.
Yeah.
And stopped running myself ragged and stopped running from my feelings. It was probably the biggest thing. Like the number one thing was that resistance, the monster of resistance to actually letting myself grieve was literally making me sick.
Yeah.
And even though on the outside I looked like a super healthy person, I was in my 20s too. I was like technically should be like in the healthiest, peak of my life.
Yeah.
Yet I kept manifesting all these crazy illnesses because I was not letting myself process and feel and slow down, take care of myself. Yeah, so I'm sure, so many can relate, and maybe, still wondering, why do I always get sick, or, these things happening? Can you maybe take inventory of how you're treating yourself?
Yeah.
Are you letting yourself feel? And even down, how do you feel about yourself? What stories, do we
how
tell
critical
ourselves?
are you of yourself? And how much, like, there's a phrase that I have come back to with several clients and myself, but like, if I loved myself right now, what would I do? If I really deeply loved myself right now, what would I do? And sometimes that's, eat the cookie.
This week, that's for sure.
Right. But also like loving yourself, it's like loving your kids. Well, I don't have kids, but you do. You don't, in order to love your kids, you don't let them eat the cookies all day long every day, right? You have to brush your teeth, you have to go to bed. That is part of loving yourself, like taking care of yourself, getting rest, making sure that you're interacting with the right people in your life, feeling good. All those things are loving yourself. So the more you can love yourself, the more you can give to everyone else around you. And the more it gives other people around you permission to love themselves too. Like that's the beauty of it. It's not like, if I love myself, then there's not enough to give to anybody else. It's really just like the more you can turn it in on yourself, the more it multiplies for everybody else in your life.
It's so true. Right. And it's like the exact opposite. Many think, if I, loving myself is selfish.
Yeah.
That makes me conceited, too full of myself. No. The exact opposite is true. To truly love others, you have to love yourself first. And like, what perhaps a beautiful note to end this on is think about your loved ones that are gone.
Yeah.
You know, even it might even be tough. I know self-love is a really big challenge for a lot of us. And I think that's tends to be, you know, kind of a primary like pillar of the work that both you and I do, is helping people return to that and like turning inward and learning to really love yourself in a truly unconditional way. Because it's key. It has to come first before anything else can happen in your life, before healing of your physical body and mental, emotional, before manifesting, you know, your desires into your life and really creating what you want to experience instead of manifesting more, you know, of the challenges and the stuff that you don't want. But I found, well, I find all the time, but with my clients, it's really tough for them to just, you know, you can't just flip a switch and be like, okay, it's really easy to love myself now. Right?
Yeah.
It's a lot. It takes a lot of work. It's like the hardest step of the process, right? Multi steps. We go through a lot of work to get to that point. So I was like, you know, like guiding my clients, like lean into spirit a little bit, lean into your guardian angels, into your loved one, perhaps that you just lost, that you're missing this holiday season. Think, how would they want to treat you? You know, maybe, you know, think of how much that person loved you. How would they treat me right now? You know, because they're gone, you know, like in a way, like to cherish their memory, like what more could I do for myself to make them happier than by loving myself? And just kind of leaning a little bit into them. Because trust me, if you have any interest in, you know, into getting more into the spiritual realm and connecting with your past loved ones, I swear I'm closer to my dead relatives than I was when they were walking this earth. So if you'd like to have a conversation about that, get a hold of me anytime. I'd love to. I love helping people, you know, connect with spirit and make that connection with their loved ones, because their love is still here. And when you're struggling to come up with, you know, your own self-love, like you need to pull it out of yourself, like, oh my gosh, I haven't loved myself my entire life, how do I suddenly do this now? Lean into their love. Let them help fill your heart with love until you learn to love yourself on your own. They're all here. And so whoever's listening, if you've got a loved one that's been weighing on your mind this holiday season, you're really missing them, maybe some more grief is coming back to you. I'm getting the chills just thinking this and saying it, that your loved one, you're catching this video because your loved one wanted to say they love you and they want you to love yourself and to create a magical life for yourself, because that will make them so happy. They went at the perfect time that they needed to go. They chose that, and it was the most divine time, no matter what tragic circumstance it happened under. But they are in a great place now, and they want to see you find a great place here on earth. So let their love fill your heart. Let them shine down on you. Notice the signs. Maybe it's in repeat numbers you see, or songs you hear on the radio, the coins you find on the ground, the birds that fly by. We're in winter right now, but depending where you are, maybe butterflies and you know, things like that. There's all kinds of signs happening around us of our loved ones trying to catch our attention. So perhaps this is your reminder that you're going to see something today. Maybe even certain types of flowers, what have you, different animals. They're making themselves known. So maybe, you know, today, again, try to open your heart to receiving love for yourself, taking the love from your loved ones. Maybe just open your gaze a little bit, open up those blinders and look around for the signs. Because once you start recognizing them, that helped me with grief so much. You know, feeling their presence and their love, like, oh, you are still here and sending me your love. Thank you so much. And you can continue a relationship with them in a whole new way. It may be different. It takes some time to kind of break away from that physical longing and really embracing this like spiritual, emotional relationship you still have with them, but it is entirely possible. It's happening. They're sending their love to you all the time, whether or not you feel it or not. But let me tell you, when you open your heart and your mind to receiving that, it can be so helpful. So helpful. So with that, if you're curious, I mean, hopefully sending so much love to everyone that catches this video. Happy holidays, sending love to you from us, from our loved ones, our whole host of guardian angels that have been, you know, in the spirit realm for a long time, or maybe they are new. in transitioning over, but there's so much love here for you. You're here for a reason. You caught this video for a reason. And if you feel compelled to carry a discussion a little deeper with either myself or Nicole, you can see our information in the description below, reach out to us anytime, and stay tuned for more videos, more real talk, right? Let's talk about it. Talk about all these uncomfortable things that, you know, we typically don't want to address. But that's how we heal. That's how we reduce that resistance monster and make life actually fun and enjoyable, because that's what you deserve. So, Nicole, if there's anything else you want to end with on that, otherwise I say, love you all so much and stay tuned. We'll see you next time.